welcome back, everybody. I said I would do a series on sourdough, so here we go. I'm going to start that series right now. This right here is my leaven, and as you can see, it's roughly doubled in size. It's very aerated. I'll give you a closer look before I mix it into anything. And this is what I'm going to use. Now, the difference between a leaven and a starter is this is my starter, this is my leaven. There is no difference. It's exactly the same thing. All I do with a leaven is I double the amount of flour and water to make a larger amount. That way I can make 2 loaves of bread as opposed to 1 with my starter. And I'll show you that a little bit later. But if you watched my video on leavens and starters, you'll know that they are the exact same thing. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to get you a closer angle on what I'm doing, and we'll get to work. And so as you can see, this has been about 4 to 5 hours. You can see it's about doubled in size. You look at the top, see it's very aerated. It's got kind of a dome shape to it. And that's exactly what you're looking for. This starter is absolutely ready to make leaven with or to just put in a sourdough. And that's what you're looking for in your starter. Alright, now that I have my leaven, which is just a starter that I've bulked out, nothing fancy, I'm going to mix this back into itself. So, in making sourdough bread, you're not going to make this like a yeast bread. There's no sugars involved. You don't have to add anything. You're just going to use your leaven, flour, and water with a little bit of salt. Actually, a little bit less salt than you would in a yeast bread. So let me get this all organized, and we'll get started. The first thing I want to go over is what's actually going into the sourdough. So I prefer to grind my own wheat, and this is what's known as Khorasan, sometimes called kamut, but it is a ancient wheat, very simple gluten, a lot easier for a lot of people who have sensitivity to gluten to digest, but it is a little bit rougher to work with as far as making bread out of it, so I will not be using this entirely. But this is, and we'll have a video at some point on, grinding this, prepping it, sifting it if you prefer to sift it. I did not for this particular recipe, but we'll go into that. So, once it's ground, it gets this nice golden flour that is really earthy smelling, very nutty smelling. And this is going to be 30% of my recipe. I'm going to use this flour for 30% of it. And I'm going to use my ground hard red wheat that I've sifted for the majority of it, for 70%. And this just makes it easier to work with. The gluten structure is easier to work with, so it makes the overall process easier. So those are the 2 flours I'll be using. For actually baking, I'm going to be using a cast iron, nice cast iron that I use to bake my round loaves in. So that's how we'll be baking it. And we will be making round loaves. So these I found online. They were relatively cheap. They're made from recycled cardboard. You can get them like this as well, where it's actually wood. But these are really, really hard to clean because of all the grooves and stuff. So I'm going to test these out, which don't have those deep grooves for all the flour and stuff to get stuck into. And see how they work, see how long they last. I'll let you know. So we'll be making round loaves. These will be our proofing baskets. And then, of course, next thing you'll need is a scale, because we're going to do all of this by measurement. Now, I know a lot of people are like, I'm not a baker. Cups can be different volumes and all this other stuff. Well, you don't need all that. You just need a cheap digital scale, and you can make every bread recipe work. And I will show you that process in here. So I'm going to get everything set up, all of my bowls and stuff, and we'll get started real quick. To start your very first sourdough, you're going to need basically 3 ingredients. You could say 4, but 3 ingredients: flour, water, and salt. Now, you also need a leaven or a starter, but technically that is also water and flour. So technically it's 3 ingredients. Occasionally throughout this video, you may hear me say starter, you may hear me say leaven. They are the exact same thing, and I do suggest you check out my starter and leaven video. That way you understand that a leaven is just a starter that you've bulked out to make bread with. Technically, you can make a single loaf with just your starter by the number recipe that I gave you in that video for the starter. It would be plenty. But because I'm making 2 loaves, I needed to bulk it out, which is considered making it into a leaven. So I have made a leaven, and now we're going to get started. So from here, we're going to break up our leaven a little bit in some water, just to make it incorporate into our flour. So I'm going to take my medium-sized bowl, and I'm going to zero it out. And I know that for my particular recipe, because I'm making 2 loaves, you want 20 to 30% of the weight of your flour to be starter. So flour is what everything is based on. Depending on how much flour you're adding is what everything else is going to be based on. So seeing how I'm making 2 loaves with 1,000 grams of flour, the starter needing to be 20 to 30% of that means I need 200 to 300 grams of starter. So for me, I'm going to try and split that just a little bit. It's going to be about 270 grams of my starter. So I'm going to take my starter. As we see, well, you can see it. It's mixed into itself again. I did that after I took the video of it being, dome topped and stuff. Just makes it easier to measure when it's not all fluffy. And so I'm going to add 270 roughly grams of my starter. It's going to be most of it. As I measured this out to exactly what I wanted, with a little bit of play to it, which was 280, I should be able to get 270 easily enough. And there it is. It's actually 275. That's close enough. So that entire leaven was used. See? The entire leaven is gone. But I still have a starter that I can make another leaven from, which I will be doing, but I won't be videotaping it this time around, mainly because I've had a lot of suggestions for me to make sourdough, so not having to videotape all of it is just easier. But we are going to be making 2 loaves, so that's 270 grams of starter. Go ahead and get some water in my jar so it doesn't stay all messy. Set that off to the side. So, now that we have our starter, I'm going to use spring water because softened water does not interact well with a sourdough. So I'm going to use spring water, and I want a 70% hydration. So to get 70% hydration, I'm also going to take into account some of the starter. So I'm going to actually hit pretty close to like 680 grams of water is what I'm going to be shooting for. So I'm going to go ahead, aim for that 680 grams of water. 500. Nice to know each bottle is 500. Ooh, a little much, but 690 will work. So now that I have my starter and some water, I'm going to go ahead and take my dough whisk, a neat little dough whisk. I'm just going to mix the starter in, kind of like you would yeast for a yeast bread, just to break it up, just like that. It looks like nice and frothy and milky. Now, I'm going to set this aside. Now that it's broken up, that's all my water and my starter all in one bowl. Now all I have to worry about is my dry ingredients. So for my dry ingredients, we know that we want 30% of this to be Khorasan wheat, and we want 70% to be the ground hard red wheat. So for 1,000 grams of flour, that comes out to 300 grams of my Khorasan, 300 grams of our Khorasan wheat. And this is not sifted, it's a whole wheat. It's got the bran, it's got the germ. I'll show you what that looks like once it's all mixed together. But we're going to get 300 grams of this golden flour. 70, 304, close enough. Now, I know I'm doing this by weight and by math, but if you're a couple of grams off, you're not going to kill anything. So don't go being too worried. So I know that the last 700 is going to be my ground hard red wheat. I'm going to add that now until I have 1,000 grams total of flour. There we go. So, it's all of our flour. Now, salt. If you watched my white bread recipe, 2% of the weight of the flour is salt. Now, in a sourdough bread, because we don't want to stunt the culture of the sourdough, we're actually going to use 1.5%. So for 1,000 grams, I only need 15 grams of salt as opposed to the 20 that you would see in a normal wheat flour. So I'm only going to add 15 grams of salt. Go ahead and add the salt. Just like that, 15 grams. Now I'm going to mix all my dry ingredients together. Just like this. I'm going to mix that Khorasan, that salt, and that hard red wheat together. Make kind of a really light golden kind of flour. Try not to get it everywhere like I just did, but if you do, it's not a big deal. All mixed together just like that. Now, nice and simple. I'm going to take our sourdough mixture, our starter that we have with all of our water. We're going to slowly add that to our flour, like so. So you get all that starter. One of these neat little bowl / dough scrapers is nice for this. Get it all out. And set our bowl aside to get washed out. We'll need that later. and slowly start mixing it in. So what we're going for here is a 70% hydration flour. So because the starter added a little hydration, we cut down on the water just a little bit, just to make sure we could keep it in the hydration range we want. You don't want to be too wet, otherwise it makes it hard to work with. You don't want it to be too dry, otherwise it'll turn out dense and it won't rise when you bake it. So once you get everything starting to incorporate together in your big bowl, just like that. And I like to get in here with one of my hands, just really get everything worked into it, get all the clumps worked out of it. You don't want it to be all clumpy, but you do want to have all of that flour, if there's any dry flour sitting around, worked into it. Your hand's going to get messy, don't worry about it. You can clean it off. But at this point, I'm going to actually wash that bowl out, that medium bowl. I'm going to transfer this over into that bowl to do an autolyze. All autolyzing is doing is letting the flour absorb the water, so it's not as tacky and sticky. So let me go wash that bowl out real quick, and I will be right back. So, in my medium bowl, actually going to get this cleared out of the big bowl so I have more space to work with on the counter. Like I said, one of these nice scrapers is really good for this. Just get in there and it scrapes everything out. Like that. Don't lose any of that good dough. There. And just like that. Now, for my sourdough, as opposed to my yeast dough, I do like to work it just a little bit more, and I just wet my hands a little bit. So I can do that without getting all messy. I just want to form it into a rough shape. You can see it looks relatively like a mess. That's okay. That's what we want to see right now. And from here, what I'm going to do is that little trick I showed you before in the white bread. Which is just these nice shower caps. Now I did, like I said in the comments of my last video, I did find that they actually sell these as bread covers. I haven't ordered any of those yet, but it may be something worth looking into, and I will be looking into them later. But the nice elastic just lets you cover everything, just like that. And we're going to let this sit for about 30 minutes. We're going to let it autolyze, which means let it absorb all of that water. So in about 30 minutes, we'll come back, and I'll show you how we start to fold and shape the dough. So we've been sitting for 30 minutes. What we're going to do is open this up. See, it looks kind of porous. That's from the Khorasan, which is nowhere near as fine and easy to work with as that bread flour. But it will work into a smoother ball once we fold it a few times. And the first fold we're going to do inside the actual bowl here. I used a small bowl of water to wet my hands with so the dough doesn't stick to me. I'm just going to work it away from the bowl, just like this. Nice and easy, fancy, to where I can actually pick it up. Work it off the bottom of the bowl a little bit. Alright, now pick it up, fold it over itself, just like that, just in the bowl. Keep it pushed out a little bit. Pick it up again. The bowl will let me. Fold it over itself, press it down. Nice and easy. You can see it's already becoming smoother, getting a better shape, easier to work with. This is exactly what we want to see as we're folding it on itself. Now over time, this dough is going to tense up. You can see I'm getting less and less elasticity each time I fold it. That's exactly what we're trying to achieve anyway. We're trying to make the structure, the lattices of the gluten overlap. And once it reaches this point where you pick it up and it doesn't really stretch, you just want to leave it alone. So we finished our first set of folds, and this is going to make it where we can take this out of the bowl next time and actually work it here on our board. But for right now, we need to let it relax so we're not tearing the gluten. What I'm going to do, cover it back up. We're going to give it another 30 minutes to rest. We're going to repeat this process anywhere between 3 to 6 times. Really depends. For the Khorasan flour, it's probably going to be a few times more. It's probably going to be 5 times if I had to take a guess this early on. So this process, 2 minutes of folding, 30 minutes of waiting. And you're going to repeat that process for about 4, 5, maybe even 6 times. It really depends on how the dough elasticity looks. So I'm going to set the timer for 30 minutes and I will be back. All right, so our first 30 minutes is over. Get this out of the way. See, it's getting shinier. Now, the thing about the Khorasan wheat is it's going to make this dough a little bit harder to work with than normal bread dough just through the whole process. But that's okay. Just keep a little bit of water on hand to wet your fingertips with. Everything will be fine. I'll pull it out onto my board, just like that. Pick it up, fold it over itself. Gonna flatten it down a bit. One thing you'll notice about the Khorasan is it has kind of a grit to it. That's because I didn't sift it. It's got all the bran, it's got all the germs still in it. Just makes it overall a heartier bread, which I do enjoy. So I'm just gonna do a couple of folds, like so. We don't want to overstress it. The Khorasan does not have as much gluten strength as the hard white wheat does. So just gonna fold it in on itself. Dry my board just a little bit so I can get a little bit of tension on the dough. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna move the dough away from myself and pull it back in on itself, and you're gonna start to form a bit of a skin on the outside. Don't be too rough with it. Like that. You get a nice, decent dough ball. Just like that. We're going to put it back in our bowl. Don't worry about the little bit that comes off of it. That's that Khorasan. We're going to recover. Put it on for another 30 minutes. Let it relax. Be back in 30. All right, so we're on to fold number 3. My dough gathered up. Bowl. It's already starting to come together better. It's nice. It's holding up better. Because it's Khorasan, it's going to be a little tacky to work with. Keep using a little bit of water. Nothing fancy. Get up under it, pull it up. Lay it in on itself. What I'm going to do is a coil fold on this one. So, get everything put together, like so. like so. Down just a little bit, not a bunch. Roll it in on itself, just like that. What you're doing is making a lattice work of all the different glutens, giving it structure so it holds a shape. Now it's pretty tense. So put it right back in its bowl. We'll let it rest. We're going to repeat this. From what this feels like, probably won't just one more time before we do a bulk ferment. Cover it up and leave it alone 30 minutes. We'll be back for the last set of folds. All right, so it's time to do our last fold. But before we do that, since our next step is going to be the bulk ferment, also known as a bulk rise, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little olive oil in this nice, nifty, clear container. You can find these at Walmart or online, wherever, for storing dry goods like cereals and stuff. But works really good for you to be able to see when your dough is ready, when it's gotten to that 2 times normal size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little olive oil to keep the dough from sticking. I'm just going to rub it along the inside. Just make it a nice coating so nothing sticks. Make it easier to get out of here. Nice and easy. Just like that. Set it aside. Wash my hands. And we're going to do our last fold. So, do our last set of folds. Gather the dough up. Just like that. Wet my hands just a little bit. You can see it's gotten a lot more elastic. I can work with it a lot better. It's not tearing. It's exactly what you want to see. We're just going to fold it in on itself a few times. Nothing fancy. Now we're not going to worry about shaping it into a ball because we're going to press it down into this container. What I'm going to do is just make sure I fold it as much as the dough allows me. Get as many folds in it as I can. About at this point, where if I pick it up, it stays as one ball. There's not a whole lot I can do with it anymore. I'll pick it up, drop it into my container, just like that. I'm going to take a spatula. Now you're not going to cram it in here, but you just kind of want to press it down. Nothing fancy. Just get it kind of flattened on top. It's not perfect science. Just like that. And then I'm going to take my cover. I'm going to cover the top. That doesn't dry out. Here comes the fun part. So I have a set of markers. I remember where I put it. Or you can use rubber bands. I'm going to put a mark on the container. Right there. This is just washable marker. And what we're looking for is anywhere between double and 1 3/4 normal size. This process is going to take anywhere. I've seen it take as short as 5 hours. I've seen it take as long as 12. So you're not going to really set a timer for this. You're just going to kind of keep an eye on it. Once it reaches the height that you want, that's when we'll move on to the shaping and proofing. This is called a bulk ferment. So I'm going to set this here. I'm going to keep my eye on it over the next 5 to 12 hours, and we'll see how long it takes. Room temperature can affect this greatly. The warmer it is, the faster this will happen. But also, some people use a proofing box, which keeps it about 80 degrees. Those can be helpful. But for the everyday person, just keep your eye on it. Eventually it will ferment to, the size that you want. And then I will show you what that looks like when we get there. All right, see you in a while. As we can see here, this is kind of an in-between shot. It's not quite where I want it yet, but it's getting close. You can see how it's kind of domed on top. You see all the little air bubbles forming inside as it ferments. I'd say in about another hour, this will be ready to go. So, this is going to be the last segment I filmed for today. We have finished our bulk ferment. We have roughly doubled, not quite, but it's close enough, and I don't want it to fall. So we're going to go ahead and prep our baskets. These are those round Bennington baskets I was mentioning before. We're going to test these out. Hopefully it comes out good. But the way you use these is I just use some flour. Don't worry about using too much. It's better to use too much than too little. You can always brush off any excess before you bake. So don't worry about that. But you don't want it to stick. So you're going to take your basket. You're going to flour it very heavily. Nice thick coating, just to make sure nothing sticks. All right. It's one basket prepped. Put it off to the side. My next basket. Some more flour. I just use a tea diffuser. You can use just a normal sifter or whatever you have on hand. This works really well. You're just going to nice thick coating of flour. Keep everything from sticking. Just like that. All nice and coated. Just like that. Alright. Once that's done, we're going to move on to splitting the dough. I want to make 2 loaves. Take our scale. I'm going to zero our bowl out. Like that. I'm going to let our dough come out into our bowl. Take a little work. Oil was for. Get it out of there. Just like that. So we'll have our full dough weight. Looks like it's about 2,000 grams, which is pretty close to what I wanted. 1,000 grams of loaf for total dough weight. What I'm going to do, take and dust out some of my hard white wheat. So. Here we go. A little much in there. That's okay. Dust it out so it doesn't stick. And I take my scraper, gather up my dough. You can tell from the fermentation process, it's become quite elastic. It doesn't stick to me. It's good. It does stick just a little bit, but not very much. I'm just going to flatten it out. I'm actually going to roughly cut it in half. this. Zero my bowl out. So, weigh this. So close. There it is, right there. So, now the dough is separated, I'm going to shape it. For this process, because I want them to be round, I'm not going to do the normal laminated shape. I'm going to actually fold it in on all four corners, just like this. So, lay it on its top, shape it just like this to a nice, neat little ball. Now, the thing to remember about these baskets is because I want the top of mine to be this smooth skin that I'm shaping right now, is that the underneath is actually going to be facing up. So, I'm going to take my basket, pick it up where the seam is underneath, I'm going to lay it in like that. Stitch the top together. Didn't quite come together like I wanted, but it'll be okay, because it's going to be the bottom of the loaf anyway. We'll get a better one on the next one. Stitch it together. Now, take that nice, neat little shower cap. I'll put just a little olive oil in it. Not a lot. Just a little bit. This is just to keep it from sticking. I'm going to cover the top, like so. At this point, if you're only making one loaf, this would be it. This process is another one of those ones where you're going to have to just sit and wait. This could take 8 hours, it could take 12 hours. This is the proofing stage. So usually with yeast bread, it's a little easier to tell. With sourdough, it's not as easy to tell. But you're going to basically take it off of the feel and not so much a time. So once this raises up to just below that last ridge, and if I poke it and it stays in just a little bit but doesn't collapse, then I know it's ready. And I'll show that process when we get there. But for right now, you make it, you put it in your basket, you cover it. You can use a wet towel or whatever you want, but I just like using these because they're easy. You just set it aside. Some people, while I'm getting the next one shaped, some people like to cold ferment, which slows the process down. At that point, it can take anywhere from 12 to 24 hours. It gives you a little bit more forgiveness as far as catching it before it overproofs. So hopefully we don't get there. But it'll also make the bread more tart. So if you like the bread more tart, feel free to try cold fermenting, and I'll probably do a video on that at some point. Just not this one. So, my next piece, back it out a bit. So, and my corners in, just like that. Stitch it together. Nice and easy. All we're doing is using the tension of the board to pull the skin. It will slowly tighten up. Just like that. Till you have a decent skin formed on your dough ball. Just like that. Nice neat little dough ball. Take my next basket, Remember, seam side up. Drop it in. Stitch your bottom if you have to. This Khorasan wheat makes it a little bit more tricky to work with. Didn't come together quite like just using 100% hard red wheat, but it should still come out very well. Lay it in just like that. Get another cap. A little bit more olive oil. So, cover her up, set it aside. That's it. Now we're just going to let them proof. When they're ready, I will shoot that tomorrow. But see you tomorrow. So, as we can see here, our doughs are nice and proofed. They're above the base of this. Now, this is about 8.5 hours of proofing. Yours may proof at a different speed depending on the strength of the starter that you used, how much starter you used, the humidity, the heat. There's a lot of different variables at play here. But the main way that you can tell if it's fully proofed or if it's overproofed or underproofed is when you poke it. See how it gives a little bit, but it comes back. And it comes slowly back out. That's what you're looking for when you're proofed. So if you were to poke it and it kind of sinks in on itself, that's overproofed. You've proofed it too long. I will do a video at some point about what you can do about that. You obviously can't really make normal bread out of it if you overproof it, but you can still make like a flat bread or something like that out of it. And I'll do a video on that at some point. But as soon as you poke it and it kind of pokes back out at you a little bit, then you know you're good to go. So what I'm going to go ahead and do, I'm going to go ahead and preheat my oven. I like a little bit of a lighter crust than some people. Some people like a really dark crust. I like a lighter crust, but you can bake it anywhere between 375 and 440. But depending on how dark you want that crust. But me personally, I'm going to do it at 395, just below 400. My oven seems to cook a little hot anyway. We're going to go ahead and get our cast iron preheated. So you'll go ahead and get that preheated before you start to bake. And I will take you through all of that. So let's go ahead and get everything preheated and I will be back to show you. Alright, so we are preheated now. The oven is preheated as well as our cast iron. I apologize, I'm testing camera angles right now. This raised back to my countertop makes getting a good camera angle for things a little bit more complicated. Luckily I'll be doing some renovations at some point. The reason we use cast iron is the cast iron is going to keep the steam inside, keep the crust a little bit moist, allow it to expand and get a good oven rise. And what we're going to do right now is we're going to use parchment paper as a way to keep it from sticking to our cast iron. Just a little bit of parchment paper, like this. Now I'm going to go and get our actual cast iron out really quick. Be right back. Nice and hot. Like that. Okay. Tile. Now, you got a good hot cast iron. I'm going to take our first loaf, like this. Take it in one hand, take the parchment paper, lay it over the top, like so. Just slowly roll it out. Just like that. And boom. Now, from here, we don't want all of this spare dust on here, all this flour. I'm going to take a paintbrush, or they actually make flour brushes. You're just going to sweep some of that excess off, otherwise it'll just burn. Go around, sweep some of it off. Anything without any liquid in it is just going to burn. You don't want that. Get it off. It's nice shape to your dough. Get it swept off. Alright. In order to help it rise, I'm going to make a couple of cuts. Some people like to make one straight cut. I kind of like to make this ridge cut. I'm going to pick it up. Nice and easy. Put it down inside your cast iron. Like that. Try and keep paper off the sides of it. Now we're going to take our lid, put our lid back on top. We're going to put this in the oven for 20 minutes with the lid on. And then we're going to take the lid off and finish for another 20 minutes to darken the crust. Just like that. Be back. While that is starting its bake, I want to go a little bit more into why I made the cuts that I did. So one of the ways that you get your bread to be fluffier is what they call an oven spring. An oven spring is the inch or so, sometimes 2 inches of height that you gain from the steam that gets created inside the bread, and it kind of pushes the loaf up. The biggest thing about that is if the dough structure is a little less tight, seeing how I'm using Khorasan wheat, it doesn't hold quite as tight as if I was using just purely the ground red white wheat, hard red wheat. So cutting too deep into it would just deflate it. It'll just tear. So hopefully, we'll see when it comes out. There's 3 quick cuts that I made before I put it into the Dutch oven, the cast iron. We'll give it enough space to grow with an oven spring. I've never been able to get a really good ear. I've still been trying. So we'll see how this one comes out. All right, so we are at 20 minutes. So, that's it. As we can see, it's got a little bit of rise to it. We're just going to finish it at this point. Put it back in, lid off, for another 20 minutes. Let it finish. Alright, so the first loaf is almost ready. So I'm going to go ahead and prep my next loaf so it can go right in the cast iron after I get the other one out. So just like before, take some parchment paper, put it over the top, put my hand there. You don't want to collapse the dough. Like so. I'm just going to slowly rock it until it lets go. Just like that. Side. Take our brush, flush off that excess. And don't try and brush it too hard. I mean, if it's got some liquid in it, it won't burn. You're just trying to get any of the dry stuff off so it doesn't burn to your loaf. Leave that interesting shape to it though. Just like that. We are ready to go. Let's slide this off to the side. It's almost ready. So, while we're waiting on that, I'm going to go over the next loaf, this loaf. I'm going to put it in just a little bit hotter. This one's looking a little bit lighter than I would like. So I'm going to bump up the temperature on this second one to 410. See if that darkens it up just a little bit. And just like that, it looks like this one is done. So go ahead and grab this one. Just like so. Down. Side. Like that. This one. Right in. Like that. This, you can also use to squirt with. Not a huge fan of them. Mainly because I don't really have the technique down really well. Take that. Take our lid. And let's put the second loaf in while I show you this first one. Reset our timer. 20 minutes covered, 20 minutes not covered. Now, if you want to darken it a bit, you can just by adding a little bit more bake time to the end. But as we can see, the loaf has risen quite a bit. It's going to be a little hot, so I'm not going to be able to handle it very well. But it has risen quite a bit, not as much as I would like, but you see how these cuts that I made opened up as it rose. It's got a nice hollow sound to it. Now, don't cut into a sourdough especially, I mean any bread really, but a sourdough especially until it is cooled. Let it come down to room temperature, because all that steam that's in here is setting the crumb, which is that light fluffy layer on the inside, and you want to let that complete before you do anything with it. Otherwise you'll kind of squish it down when you try and cut it, and you don't want that. So just let it rest until it reaches room temperature, and as soon as this second loaf is done, we'll get that out, and then we will cut them. So as we can see, both of our loaves are done. They have a nice hollow sound to them. This one didn't rise quite as far at the higher temperature, but it still sounds good. So I look forward to cutting into them, see what we got. I will be modifying these recipes as time goes on, so hopefully this has been a good tutorial. And the only thing left to do is cut them open. So we'll get to that once they're fully cooled. Alright, so we have the bread ready. We're going to go ahead and cut into it. It's cooled down to room temperature. Remember, let it come down to room temperature first. We're just going to cut it straight down the center so you can see the crumb. Nice and easy. Nice sweet crust on it. Just like that. Nice, airy, fluffy. That one came out really good. So just like that, you can make your own sourdough.